Hi, welcome back. In the last episode, we implemented a route guide, and we get a route guide uh, to determine if we should leave a view if uh, if the view is clean, and if there are unsafe data in the view, then the route guide will display a prompt, a confirmation to ask us if you really want to move. For example, if I add something here in the title, and if I decide to leave, then what happen is we will get this confirmation dialog. Currently, this confirmation dialog is written in using just plain old JavaScript, using this confirm. Okay. Oops. Oh, cancel. Okay. So that's the one. So let me just do that again. So this is the this is the this is the confirmation. What we're going to do in this episode is to make the confirmation box nicer by using the the Bootstrap widget. This is the Angular's Bootstrap widget. To use that, to use the Bootstrap widget, what we will do is we will have to do this. We will add the Bootstrap module into our project. But before we do that, let's create a new branch for this episode. So I'm going to go check out part 14. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, so we are part 14. And before I open, let me add this line first. Let me add the project. So it's ng add ng-boot. Okay, so this will add the project in, and and the and the component that we want to add is the model component. So this is the component. Okay, let's have a look at this. Okay, so this is the component that I want to add. Uh, okay, so we will have like a little title on top, and then a message, and then we have cancel, okay or cancel. This is the same as the confirmation dialog box, and the code is actually here. So this is the one we'll be using the Angular's active modal and the modal service. So we'll see how we do this. This is the confirmation HTML. Okay, so let's see if it's added. So it's still adding, right? Okay, so let's start first of all by opening our project. Okay, so what we'll do is that just before I do that, the Angular uh, package adds, sorry, not Angular, the Bootstrap package adds the Bootstrap CSS. So rather than using the Bootstrap CSS that we have been using here, what we'll do is this: we will use the Bootstrap CSS that comes with the module. Okay, so let me just comment this guy out first, and then we put import, and the module is here, Bootstrap. Okay, so this is the one. What I'll do is this: I will add that here. Okay, so let me just see if it that. Okay, so that has been added correctly. Okay, so what we will do is we will add for all these component, I will add them into a new Angular module. We will use the CLI generate module. I will put them. I'll call the module UI. Okay, so let's go back to here. So that's the module. Okay, and I'll begin importing the module. Most of the Angular UI components, whether it's material or or Ant or Bootstrap, generally what happens is this: every one of these components, will have a module that you need to import. The idea is to only import those modules or only import those components along with their corresponding modules that you need. So the 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 modal module the modal component. We need to use the modal component, we need to import the modal module. So it's ngb modal module. That's the module. And what we need to do is this: we need to import this in. Okay. Now I will create a confirmation component using the bootstraps component. So for this guy, so I will write one of these things. So I'll create a component now under the UI. I'll call this, I'll put it into the components directory. And then I'll call this confirmation. Okay, I'll flat and I'll skip. Oops. Okay. Right. So, okay. So let's go back to here and have a look. So that's the component. So let's imagine. Let's go back to the edit route guide. So we're going to replace this guy, and so our confirmation is going to take one message. So we will go to here. So this is the not this. This is the component. Okay. So we will do the same thing. We will add an input here. Okay, which is the message. Okay, so this one, so this message, okay, will be displayed here. Okay, displayed here, and then we need to control whether the button is okay or cancel. So these two buttons. So these two buttons, right? Okay, so that would be using the modal service. So let's import that in. The modal service is ngb active modal. Okay, so this service gives the component control of the dialog of the modal, and we will inject that in. Div modal. Okay, so this modal contains two components. Two methods: a close and a dismiss. When we display the modal will return a promise. So if we click on OK, the promise, when we click on OK, the promise will resolve, and we click on cancel, the promise will fail. It will we will reject the promise, right? So close is to tell the model that we are okay with it, so it will resolve, and dismiss is to reject the promise. Okay, so these are the two methods we'll use, and we'll use it on the two button. So now we will go back to our URL. Okay, and then we will just copy this thing in. So it's modal header and our title. Okay, so we will say modal header h4 title. Okay, so we will say here, please confirm. And then we will do the same thing for the body. Okay, and this is where we will display the message. Okay, so this message will be displayed here. And then finally, we have the footer containing the two buttons. So we want two button, and then we will say cancel. And this one we'll say okay. This button, I'll follow this guy here. So it's button outline secondary. Okay, and this guy here, this would be button danger. Okay. Now this is where the click occurs. So when I click this, I will call the modal, that's the service, dismiss. And in here, oops, when I call click this, modal close. Okay, so maybe I can do this here, like, okay, so this modal button, so we'll use the modal service to flag, to let whoever who is displaying this confirmation know that whether we are rejecting the promise or whether we are resolving the promise. Okay, so that now that we have got a component, we will need to display it. So what we'll do is this: I'll write a service to display the the dialog. So we'll go so actually I don't need to generate. I can just write it here. I'll say UI. Let's call this UI service. Call this DS, and I'll import in ng-bootstrap. This is the modal service. This is for displaying the modal. I also need to import injectable. Okay, I'll injectable. So we'll write the service by just saying injectable, and export class, and then I'll call this UI service. Okay, we will inject the ng-modal service into ng-modal into this service. Okay, and then I'll call a method called confirm, which will take a message, and then this one will return a promise that will resolve to a boolean. Okay, so the idea is this: when the user clicks on OK, the promise will return to true. If it clicks cancel, then you resolve to false. So what we do is this: we will need to create an instance of the confirmation, and the way we do that is like this: dialog equals to, we'll use the modal service, and then we'll say open. Okay, so open. We need to give the name of the component. Okay, so the name of the component is this. Okay, oops, this guy here. Okay, so the name of the component, which is confirmation component. So confirmation component. Now we need to take this message and pass it into the dialog box, right? So if you recall, our confirmation component has got a message. So the way you do that is like this: dialog. So now the dialog is now an instance of the confirmation modal dialog. We'll take this component instance, and for every one of the input, you can say message equals to message. So this message is this guy, this member here. Okay. If you got more input, then you can just assign them here. Okay. Now I need to return. So the dialog box, the dialog has got result. So the result is a promise. which I need to convert it into a Boolean, right? The both the so if you notice, if you look at the result again, you will notice the type is any. What this means is this: the when you call a dismiss or a close in the uh, in the in the method, you can actually pass in any value, and then uh, when the promise either when the promise either resolve or reject, you'll get that value. So in our case, instead of getting any value, we just want true or false. Okay. So this is what I'll do. I'll return this here. Oops. Dialog result. Okay. Then I'll say if it is then, so the the user has clicked on OK. I will so you resolve successfully, and then I will just return true. True. Okay, true. So when I return true, the promise will lift this into another promise uh, true with the value true, which will resolve to true. And then if it is catch, same thing. I will do false, and that gets lifted into a promise which resolve to false. Okay. So one last thing before I. So now we've got this. So now we need to provide the service in UI module here. Okay. So I need to go, sorry, here, let me go this. So I need to go export. Since confirmation component is used by other module, I need to export the confirmation component, and I will also need to provide the UI service as a service, which I will import here. Oops. Okay. So now it's time to test this, but just before I test, I forgot. So if you recall, early in the episode, we converted the we disable IV. The reason is because we want to use augury. Okay, so now I'm going to re-enable IV. IV. Okay. Okay. So while that is going, so we have now got our module. So in future, if I want to add more, if I want to use more of the bootstraps component, what I'll do is this: I will just add them in here. So this, so by adding them in here, I don't have to, I don't have to mess up my other modules, right? So I have all my components, all my bootstrap component and the services in one module. So let's run through. I've got a confirmation component, and I created a service to display the confirmation. And I'll export the confirmation component, and I'll export the service. Right. So now to use this confirmation component, we will have to import it. Since we're going to be using it in the kboard module, we will have to import this into the kboard module. What we'll do is this: we'll go kboard module here, and then we will import the module. Oops. Oh, let me just do that again. The UI module. So it's UI module here, and then we will just import them here. Import it in here. Okay. So now we have access to the confirmation component as well as the UI service. Now, so the place to use the service is actually in the edit route guard here. Again, we will just import that in, import the confirmation module and the service. Okay, so we will just go, we'll import the service. So this is the UI service. And then what we'll do is we will inject this into the into this edit route guard service. So I'll call this UI service. Now to use this, we'll just go to 24 and we'll replace this. We'll just say this UI service and then confirm. Okay, and since the can deactivate route guard accepts a promise that returns either a boolean or a UL3. So our return type matches the return type defined in the interface. Sorry, in this can deactivate method, right? So let's just check if there's any error. Okay, so there's no error. We can now test our new module, or rather our new confirmation. So now if I make a change here, right, and I go cancel, so notice that it's now nicer, right? So this is the message. So if I can cancel, return to this. But if I now say okay, it will return to the original back to the routes, right? Exit the view. I can do the same thing for new bot when we're creating a new bot. Okay, so we go cancel again. We see the same thing, right? Okay, so so as you can see, it's actually quite easy to implement. Although the first implementation is a little bit longer, but after that, subsequently, when you add other components in, becomes very easy because of the structure that we have set up. One final thing, just before we leave, is this. If you one really annoying thing is this. So notice here, right? This create by. So this format here is an email. But if I put a space, the Angular form validator will say this is an invalid email by just putting a space. So if I remove the space, then then the error goes away. But if I have the space, then you have the error. So this is really annoying. What I will do is I will add a wrapper to the email validator to trim any spaces before passing it for validation, right? So again, this is like a custom wrapper for the validation. So let's go back to here. The place where this happens is here. Okay, so this is the validation created by, right? So I'm going to write a new form validator to wrap the email. Okay, if you again, we have actually written one before. This is to check for non-white space. We'll do the same thing, except that instead of taking an abstract control, we will now take a form. We will now take a validator function. Okay, so this is what we do. I'll call this non trim white space. Okay, and this one will take a validator, which is of type validator function this time. Okay, and it will return a validator function like that. Okay, so what we will do is this: we will return. So, sorry, here this. So now we will return a validator function. Okay, so we return a validator. We know how a validator function looks like. It looks like this. So we will say control, abstract control, and this one will return a validation errors or null, like that. So very simple. We will just do this. We'll return. Okay. So the email, as I know, the email only looks at the value. So we will say you have the value here. So if you recall, right, we read the value of a component by using by looking at the value, right? So all I need to do is this, just before passing in the value. Oh, no. So what I do here is, I just made a mistake. I need to call the validator, and then I'll pass in the control. This is my control, right? So the value, I will say control value, and then I'll trim it. Okay. And since the validator takes abstract control, I will just hack this by saying, I'll just put a hack here by saying this is make this into an abstract control. So that will remove. So I'm not interested in any other thing except for the value. Okay. So this, I'll just put here, this is a hack, okay, to trim the value. Now to use it, we'll go back to the email, and then we'll wrap this with the trim white space. Okay, so now hopefully we don't get any, by putting a space, we don't get any more error. Okay, and then if we mess it up, then we get an error. Okay, but hopefully we don't get any error if we do this, right? So now what we need to do is this, just before we save, since we allow spaces, we need to trim the space. So just before we return the value, here, okay, we need to trim the space. So let's just say this is value. Okay, then we'll say this. Okay, then we will say the created by value. Okay, then we will say created by. Okay, and then we will say trim. So make sure that we trim the value. So now we can return v. Okay, so we can do it here, or we can do it before we save, but let's just do it here. Okay, so now let's try this and make sure that there are no error. So if I put a space here and I perform an update, right? Okay, so that works. And if we now go and have a look at our storage, I'm not sure what storage. Let's go look at our IndexedDB storage, right? Hopefully, our email will not have any. So the one that we changed was, I think was this one, my first bot. Okay, so this one here. So hopefully the email doesn't have any space. Okay, so this is the end of this episode. For this, the end of this episode, and we will no longer be doing any programming anymore. For the next episode, what I'll show you is how to deploy this this application. We will convert this into a semi PWA by adding in a manifest and an icon, so that you can add to your home screen on your mobile phone, and then we'll deploy it. You'll see how much time they've got left. Next week we will probably also convert and Dockerize the entire application, create it into a container. Okay, and then the episode after that, we will bundle it into a single binary. We'll package everything into a single binary. So those are the two episodes coming up for this particular series. After that, we will start a new series by adding the backend, by adding the server. So I think I started out this series by saying that we're going to build a neat app. Neat stands for Nest.js, Express, A stands for Angular, and T stands for TypeScript. So far, this 14 episodes, we have only seen Angular and TypeScript. So uh, two, two or three episodes from now, we will start a new series and we'll look at Nest.js, and then we'll see how we can use the Nest to add into this, to integrate Nest backend into this front end. As usual, what I'll do is this: I will save this into the new branch. I'll push this in the new branch, and I will put the GitHub repository in the link below. So the branch for this is branch, the 14th branch. Okay, thank you and see you next time.